Our world is full of mysteries that defy explanation. Events so strange they leave us questioning what we think we know. From eerie disappearances to bizarre phenomena, these stories have puzzled us for years. In this video, we'll uncover 10 of the strangest unsolved mysteries of all time. So, sit back, relax, and let's explore the unknown together. The incident at Dyatlov Pass. On the first night of February 1959, 9 ski hikers died mysteriously in the mountains of what is now Russia. The night of the incident, the group had set up camp on a slope, enjoyed dinner, and prepared for sleep. But something went catastrophically wrong because the group never returned. On February 26th, searchers found the hikers' abandoned tent, which had been ripped open from the inside. Surrounding the area were footprints left by the group, some wearing socks, some wearing a single shoe, some barefoot, all of which continued to the edge of a nearby wood. That's where the first 2 bodies were found, shoeless and wearing only underwear. The scene bore marks of death by hypothermia, but as medical examiners inventoried the bodies, as well as the other 7 that were discovered over the months that followed, hypothermia no longer made sense. In fact, the evidence made no sense at all. One body had evidence of a blunt force trauma consistent with a brutal assault. Another had third-degree burns. One had been vomiting blood. One was missing a tongue, and some of their clothing was found to be radioactive. Theories floated include KGB interference, drug overdose, UFO, gravity anomalies, and the Russian version of the Yeti. Recently, a documentary filmmaker presented a theory involving a terrifying but real phenomenon called infrasound, in which the wind interacts with the topography to create a barely audible hum that can nevertheless induce powerful feelings of nausea, panic, dread, chills, nervousness, raised heartbeat rate, and breathing difficulties. The only consensus remains that whatever happened involved an overwhelming and possibly inhuman force. It truly is one of the world's most unsolved mysteries. What do you think really happened? Let me know in the comments. Sickening noises. In December 2016, a CIA officer checked into the American Embassy's health office in Havana suffering from nausea, headache, and dizziness. Days later, 2 more CIA officers reported similar ailments. By late 2018, the number grew to 26 Americans and 13 Canadians experiencing nausea, hearing loss, vertigo, nosebleeds, and focusing issues. In all the cases, victims claimed that the symptoms were triggered by a strange noise they'd heard at their homes or hotel rooms. One person said the noise was high-pitched. Another described a beam of sound pointed into their rooms. Some insisted that the noise more closely resembled marbles rolling along the floor. The illnesses confounded medical experts. Doctors at the University of Pennsylvania, who examined some of the victims, diagnosed concussion-like symptoms, but found no signs they'd suffered concussions. We know what you must be thinking. The Cuban government is up to something, right? The Cubans vehemently deny they're responsible, and many American investigators believe them. That's because they still don't know who or what made the victims sick. Was it a new type of weapon? The CIA claims it doesn't know of any weaponry that could cause these symptoms. What about ultrasound? One theory holds that a pair of covert eavesdropping devices placed too close to each other by Cuban agents may have inadvertently produced such a reaction, like the kind of feedback you hear when someone stands too close to a microphone. But the FBI has found no evidence to substantiate that argument. In fact, ultrasound is above the range of human hearing. Recordings of the sounds from some of the victims only added to the confusion. 2 scientists who studied the recordings believe they captured the sound of lovelorn male crickets. One of the scientists, Alexander Stubbs of the University of California, Berkeley, says the insects are incredibly loud. You can hear them from inside a diesel truck going 40 miles an hour on the highway. Still, the scientists had no idea why the sounds might lead to illness in humans. Maybe it was just nerves. Cuba is a high-threat, high-stress post, a former embassy official told ProPublica.org. Diplomats are warned that there will be surveillance. There will be listening devices in your house, probably in your car. For some people, that puts them in a high-stress mentality, in a threat anticipation mode. True, but then how to explain what happened in China? In May 2018, an American posted in the consulate in Guangzhou was diagnosed with the very same mystery illness. Ultimately, 15 Americans were evacuated. While the seemingly airborne cause of these brain injuries is still a mystery, the fallout is clear. The Americans removed 60% of their diplomats from Cuba and expelled 15 Cuban diplomats from Washington, D.C. The mysterious sounds may well be the opening shots in a new kind of Cold War. What exactly happened in Cuba? Was the mysterious sound they heard really just crickets? Or was there something more sinister going on? Share your thoughts in the comments. Living statues. The Encephalitis Lethargica epidemic. From 1917 to 1928, 500,000 people were afflicted with a ghastly condition that could be part of the plotline of a horror film. The victims, very much alive and conscious, found themselves in inexplicably frozen states, their static bodies prisons for their minds. Encephalitis lethargica, EL, aka the sleeping sickness, first appeared in Europe and quickly spread around the world, reaching epidemic levels in North America, Europe, and India by 1919. About a third of those stricken with the illness died. Of the survivors, nearly half eventually found themselves unable to physically interact with the world around them, all the while fully aware of their surroundings. Though occasionally capable of limited speech, emotion, and even laughter, they generally appeared as living statues, totally motionless for hours, days, weeks, or years. The cause is unknown, but one theory is brain inflammation triggered by a rare strain of Streptococcus, the bacteria responsible for many sore throats each year. Science's best guess is that the bacteria mutated, provoking the immune system to attack the brain, leaving the victim helpless. None of this explains why the illness disappeared only to resurface sporadically, be it in Europe in the 1950s or in China 10 years ago when a 12-year-old girl was hospitalized for 5 weeks with the disease. Are such occurrences the new normal, or are they signs that EL could be planning something bigger any day? A 2004 analysis of 20 patients with symptoms remarkably similar to EL concluded that whatever ailed them is still prevalent. As such, history's so-called sleeping sickness remains the stuff of nightmares. Encephalitis lethargica, EL, also known as sleeping sickness, is really scary stuff. What are your thoughts on this mysterious condition? Let me know in the comments. Do the Pollock sisters prove reincarnation? Today, 24% of Americans believe in reincarnation. Although scientists tend to poo-poo the possibility, every once in a while, an unsolved mystery comes around that is so compelling and otherwise unexplainable that it gives even scientists pause. That is what we have in the story of the Pollock sisters. In 1957, two young English sisters, Joanna Pollock, 11, and Jacqueline Pollock, 6, died in a tragic car accident. 1 year later, their mother gave birth to twins, Jillian and Jennifer. When the twins were old enough to talk, they began identifying and requesting toys that had belonged to their dead sisters, pointing out landmarks only their dead sisters would have known, such as a school they'd attended, and sometimes panicking upon seeing cars idling. "That car is coming to get us," they reportedly shrieked on one occasion. After the twins turned 5, these incidents became less frequent, and the girls went on to lead normal lives. Still, the story of the Pollock sisters made its way to Dr. Ian Stevenson, 1918 to 2007, a psychologist who studied reincarnation. After studying thousands of supposed cases, Dr. Stevenson wrote a book telling of 14 he believed to have been real, including that of the Pollock sisters.
They remembered the previous lives of 2 older sisters who'd been killed by a car driver who ran off the pavement onto the sidewalk while they were walking.
The next unsolved mystery is similar to the Pollocks: the disappearance of the Sodder children. George and Jenny Sodder of West Virginia were forced to cope not only with the immeasurable loss of their children, but also with the mysterious circumstances surrounding that loss. After the Sodder home burned to the ground on the night before Christmas in 1945, 5 of the 10 Sodder children were still alive and accounted for. But what about the other 5? From all accounts, it would seem that they had vanished into thin air. Notice how we don't say vanished into smoke? That's because in the ruins of the fire, 0 physical evidence of the children could be found, which is virtually impossible from a scientific standpoint. But that wasn't all that smelled off about the events of that night. Apparently, George tried to save the children who he believed were still trapped inside by using his coal truck, which strangely was inoperable. The phone lines to the house were found to have been cut. A woman claimed to have seen all 5 missing children peering from a passing car while the fire was in progress. And a woman at a Charleston hotel who saw the children's photos in a newspaper said she had seen 4 of the 5 a week after the fire. The children were accompanied by 2 women and 2 men, all of the Italian extraction, she said in a statement. I tried to talk to the children in a friendly manner, but the men appeared hostile and wouldn't allow it. The Sodder family theorized that the children had been kidnapped, perhaps in an attempt to extort money, perhaps to coerce George into joining the local mafia. The Sodders were Italian immigrants, or perhaps in retaliation for George's outspoken criticism of Mussolini and Italy's fascist government. From the 1950s until Jenny Sodder's death in the late 1980s, the Sodder family maintained a billboard on State Route 16 with pictures of the 5 vanished children and offering a reward for information. The last known surviving Sodder child, Sylvia, 69, still doesn't believe her siblings perished in the fire. The mysterious disappearance of the Sodder children after a 1945 house fire remains unsolved, with some believing they might have survived and are living unknown lives somewhere in America. What do you think really happened to the Sodder children? Could they still be alive today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse disappearances. In 1900, 3 keepers of the Flannan Isles Lighthouse off the west coast of Scotland disappeared under the strangest of circumstances. The lighthouse was manned by a 3-person team: Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur, with a 4th man rotating in from shore. On Boxing Day, December 26th of 1900, the relief keeper arrived to find none of the lighthouse keepers present. The only sign that anything was amiss was an overturned chair near the kitchen table. No bodies were ever found, which has led to endless speculation. Theories range from drownings to abduction by foreign spies, a ghost ship, or a giant sea monster. Whatever happened back in December 1900 at the Flannan Isles Lighthouse, we may never know. After a thorough search of the lighthouse complex turned up nothing but a set of oilskins, suggesting one of the keepers had ventured out in just his shirt sleeves. The men turned their attention to the landing platform on the west side of the island. Here, there was plenty of evidence that the island had recently been hit by a massive storm. A supply box had been smashed open and its contents strewn across the ground despite being over 100 feet above sea level. Iron railings on the side of a path had been bent and twisted out of shape. Part of a railway track had been torn from its concrete moorings, and a huge rock weighing more than a ton had been displaced. Turf had also been ripped up from the tops of the cliffs 200 feet above sea level. There was no sign of the 3 keepers. So, what had happened? Poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane or something like that, was Harvey's conclusion in a telegram to the Northern Lighthouse Board after the Hesperus returned to port. Harvey had left Moore and 3 sailors behind to tend to the light and continue the search. They scoured the islands for the 3 missing men, but found nothing. Despite extensive investigations and endless speculation, the fate of the lighthouse keepers remains a mystery. In the case of their disappearance, the most plausible theory is that they were swept out to sea while attempting to rescue one another. The Overtown Bridge and dog suicides. The Overtown Bridge, near Dumbarton in Scotland, seems to call dogs to leap to their death. A perfect spot for unsolved mysteries. Since the early 1960s, some 50 canines have perished, and hundreds more have jumped but survived, reports Slate via their Atlas Obscura blog, with some returning for a second leap onto the jagged rocks 50 feet below. The Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals has sent representatives to investigate, but to no avail. In terms of scientific truth, it is debatable, if not incredibly unlikely, that dogs are capable of forming an intent to die. Yet, something is luring dogs off that bridge, often from the very same spot and always on sunny, dry days. Many theories have arisen, including that the bridge is haunted. This was a popular theory after a local man threw his baby son to his death from the bridge in 1994. A mink is marking the area with an almost irresistible scent, and a sound anomaly exists at the bridge that only dogs can hear. Whatever is causing this phenomenon, dog owners would be wise to take heed and keep their dogs on leashes.
Why this bridge? Why Overton Bridge over all the other bridges that are here in this country? And it could be that this has this unique recipe of wildlife, of structure, of the number of dogs that are crossing it. And maybe that's enough to make this bridge unique over all other bridges.
It's a chilling thought. You're out for a peaceful walk with your dog, and suddenly, they leap off a bridge without warning. The Overtown Bridge in Scotland has become infamous for this tragic phenomenon, with numerous dogs inexplicably jumping to their deaths. While the exact cause remains a mystery, some theories suggest that the scent of animals or the bridge's architecture may disorient dogs, leading to these tragic incidents. To keep your furry friends safe, it's crucial to stay vigilant in unfamiliar areas, especially near potentially dangerous spots like the Overtown Bridge. Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Together, we can raise awareness and keep our pets safe. The Big Grey Man. The next mystery on our list also occurred in Scotland. The Big Grey Man is an inhuman creature that is said to haunt the summit and passes of the second highest peak in Scotland, Ben Macdui. In the native Scottish tongue, the creature is known as A.M. Fear Lieth More. Like the Yeti of the Himalayas and Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, of the American Pacific Northwest, the Big Grey Man has been seen by few eyewitnesses. What makes the Big Grey Man particularly frightening is that his physical characteristics don't resemble that of a bear, and thus sightings can't be dismissed as bear sightings. Those who have seen the Big Grey Man describe it as extremely tall, over 10 feet, and human-like, with short hair, broad shoulders, and long arms. Nearly all reports of sightings include the sound of gravel crunching beneath footfalls. Scientists haven't been able to come up with an explanation for the sightings and the accompanying sounds, although psychologists have proposed that those who have supposedly seen and heard the Big Grey Man have been in a state of physical and mental anguish brought on by exhaustion and/or isolation. For now, the Big Grey Man remains a mystery, but if you go to Scotland, let us know if you run into the Big Grey Man.
It really is quite eerie and quite amazing, and I suppose that's what influences my sort of ideas of what the Grey Man of Ben Macdui may be like, just some kind of presence like that.
So what you're effectively looking at is your own shadow cast onto the cloud or onto any sort of mist that's there with the sun behind you. And if the sun is a very low angle, which in winter it often is, or in Scotland, at the either end of the day you get the sun at a very low angle, so it casts a very long shadow, so it can be quite a large shadow at times. And also the other effect we expect is you have this halo effect. You get this coloured ring around the shadow.
The Lost Colony of Roanoke. In 1587, John White led a group of people from Britain to found an English colony, settling on Roanoke Island, one of a chain of barrier islands now known as the Outer Banks of North Carolina. White left for more supplies, but on his return 3 years later, found the colony meticulously abandoned, with all houses and fortifications dismantled with care. Before he'd left the colony, White had instructed the colonists that if they were taken by force, they were to carve a cross into a nearby tree. But there was no cross. The only clue was the word Croton, the name of a native tribe allied with the English, which was carved into a post. White took this to mean that the colonists had moved to Croton Island, now known as Hatteras. Ensuing investigations turned up claims that the colonists had been slaughtered by the Powhatan tribe, but there is no archaeological evidence of this, and a recent re-examination of the primary sources indicates that any massacre that occurred was not of this particular group of colonists, but rather a group of colonists who had arrived earlier. More enduring theories involve integration between the colonists and the Crotons or other local tribes, but so far, no DNA evidence has positively identified any descendants of the colony. But there may be some evidence to what happened to the colony of Roanoke. In 1937, a tourist brought a 21-pound stone with strange carvings to Emory University, claiming to have found it near the North Carolina-Virginia border. The inscription, allegedly written by Eleanor Dare, described the tragic fate of the lost colony of Roanoke, including the murder of her husband and child. Emory scholars initially declared the stone authentic, sparking national interest. However, skepticism grew when a Georgia stonecutter produced more stones with similar inscriptions, leading to suspicions of forgery. A 1941 article exposed the stonecutter as a fraud, discrediting the discovery. In 2016, Brenaw College's president, Ed Schrader, re-examined the original stone, revealing that its carving might be genuine due to the weathering pattern. Experts remain divided, with some seeing signs of authenticity and others citing historical inaccuracies. New scientific techniques could potentially determine the stone's true origin, but its authenticity remains uncertain. The lost colony of Roanoke continues to be a mystery. The disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. The last of this collection of unsolved mysteries took place on March 8, 2014, while flying from Malaysia to China. A Boeing 777 carrying 239 passengers and crew members seems to have vanished into thin air. The multinational search effort, the largest in aviation history, has turned up a mere 20 pieces of aircraft debris. The Prime Minister of Malaysia has declined to comment other than to say that the aircraft disappeared over the Indian Ocean. The lack of closure has engendered multiple theories, many of which are considered conspiracy theories, which, according to Harvard professor Cass Sunstein, are a natural product of horrific and disastrous situations, because such events make people angry, fearful, and looking for a target. Theories include hijacking, capture by the United States, crew suicide. It was reported that the pilot was having marital problems, a fire aboard the aircraft, vertical entry into the sea, a meteor strike, and even alien abduction. Notwithstanding the passage of 3 years and the expenditure of $160 million scouring thousands of square miles of ocean, the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 and the 239 people aboard remains a mystery.
I think that only once we know what happened, only then can a true form of healing begin.
We all have the same vested interest, is that we want to know what happened, and I want to see whoever's responsible for it be held accountable.
As we've seen, some mysteries refuse to be solved, lingering in our minds and challenging our understanding of the world. From lost colonies to unexplained disappearances, these stories remind us that there's still so much we don't know. What do you think happened in these cases? Do you have your own theories? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep questioning the world around you. Who knows what other mysteries are out there waiting to be uncovered?